It started about a month ago. Anna was always bubbly and talkative, the kind of person who filled every silence with stories about her day or plans for the weekend. But lately, she's been off. Quieter at dinner, distracted when we'd talk. And then there was her phone, always face down on the table, a password suddenly added to her laptop. Still, I brushed it off. Work stress, maybe, or just a phase. We all go through weird funks, right? Then came the girls' only getaway. Last Tuesday, Anna mentioned it casually over dinner. Jessica and I are planning a weekend trip, she said, swirling her wine glass like it was no big deal. Just the two of us. You know, some spa time, shopping, a little break from reality. I'll admit, it stung a little. A weekend without me? But I told myself not to be insecure. I even said, "Sounds great, babe. You deserve it. Just make sure to have fun." She smiled at me across the table, that same sweet smile I used to believe meant everything was okay. By Friday morning, Anna was packed and ready to go. She hugged me goodbye, kissed my cheek, and said she'd be back Sunday night. "I'll call if I get a chance," she said with a laugh. "But don't worry if you don't hear from me much. We're going to be busy relaxing." Busy relaxing. The phrase stuck with me. That night, I went out for drinks with a buddy of mine, Brent. Over a couple of beers, I mentioned Anna's trip, mostly just to fill the air. Brent raised an eyebrow and said, "Weird, because Jessica's husband told me she's out of town with her family this weekend." Like, the whole family, at some reunion in Oregon. I felt my stomach drop. My brain scrambled for an explanation. Maybe Jessica's family canceled last minute? I offered, half-heartedly. Brent just shrugged. Maybe. But why wouldn't Anna mention that? That question haunted me for the rest of the night. By the time I got home, my mind was racing. Jessica was Anna's best friend, her excuse for this trip. If Jessica wasn't even around, then who the hell was Anna with? I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I convinced myself there had to be an innocent explanation. Maybe I misheard. Maybe Brent got his info wrong. But deep down, the doubt had already taken root. Saturday morning, I woke up early, unable to shake the gnawing feeling in my gut. I checked Anna's location on Find My Phone, a habit we both used for safety reasons. Sure enough, her phone was 2 hours away at a boutique hotel I didn't recognize. Boutique hotel? That wasn't exactly the spa weekend vibe she described. I told myself not to panic. Maybe she just changed plans. But by noon, the questions were eating me alive. I grabbed my keys, told myself I just needed to see for myself, and hit the road. 2 hours later, I pulled into the hotel parking lot, my heart pounding in my chest. The place was small, upscale, surrounded by palm trees and a sleek infinity pool. I parked in the far corner, out of sight, and scanned the outdoor area. That's when I saw her. Anna was lounging by the pool, wearing a bikini I didn't recognize, sipping something out of a tall glass with a little paper umbrella in it. And she wasn't alone. Sitting next to her, leaning in close, was a man I'd only met once. Her coworker, Sean. I stayed in the car, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Part of me wanted to march over there, to demand an explanation, to blow it all up right there in public. But I didn't. Instead, I watched. Anna laughed at something Sean said, her head tilting back, her hand brushing his arm. They looked comfortable. Too comfortable. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. It was Anna. "Hey," she chirped when I picked up, like everything was completely normal. "We're having the best time. Just wanted to let you know I'll probably be back late tomorrow, okay?" I forced my voice to stay calm. "Sounds good. Miss you." "Miss you too," she said, almost automatically. Then she hung up, oblivious to the fact that I was sitting just 50 yards away. That was the moment it hit me. Anna wasn't just lying. She was living a completely different life. A life I wasn't part of. I stayed at that hotel for another hour, parked in the shadows, watching my wife and Sean laugh and lounge and touch like they didn't have a care in the world. When I finally drove home, the anger had started to boil beneath the surface. But I wasn't going to blow up. Not yet. If Anna wanted to lie, I'd make damn sure she couldn't wiggle her way out of it when the time came. Next move? Track down everything I could about her little spa weekend. By the time I got home that night, I was running on adrenaline. Every detail of what I'd seen at the hotel burned in my mind. Anna's carefree laugh, Sean's hand on her knee, the way they looked like they were in their own little world. My chest felt tight, and my thoughts were spinning so fast I couldn't think straight. But one thing was crystal clear. I wasn't going to sit around and let her make a fool of me. I poured myself a stiff drink and sat at the kitchen table, staring at Anna's credit card statement on my laptop. We'd always shared finances. A couple who trusted each other, or so I'd thought. It didn't take long to find the charges. The first one was the boutique hotel, a 2-night stay booked a week ago. A week ago. She'd been planning this trip while looking me in the eye and telling me we should spend more quality time together. Then there were the smaller transactions. Dinner for two at an upscale seafood place near the hotel, drinks at the pool bar, and a spa charge for a couple's massage. Couple's massage. The irony wasn't lost on me. I also noticed another charge from a week earlier, a dinner at a trendy downtown restaurant. I remembered that night clearly. Anna had told me she was working late on a big client pitch. My hand shook as I scrolled through the statements. How long had this been going on? How many nights had she spent with him while I sat at home like a goddamn idiot, making dinner and waiting for her to come home? But it wasn't just the money. It was the lies. Every single charge felt like another knife to the chest, a reminder that Anna wasn't the person I thought she was. By the time I'd finished going through the transactions, my anger had shifted into something colder, more calculated. Anna didn't know I'd seen her at the hotel. She didn't know I was piecing everything together. If she wanted to play games, I'd make sure I knew the rules and beat her at her own game. The next morning, I started making calls. First, I reached out to Jessica's husband, Doug. I'd never been particularly close with him, but we'd hung out at a few barbecues and double dates over the years. "Hey, Doug," I said, keeping my tone casual. "Anna mentioned she and Jessica were going on a girls' trip this weekend. I was just wondering if you'd heard from them. Anna's phone's been acting up." There was a pause on the other end of the line. That's weird," Doug said slowly. "Jessica's not on any trip. She's in Oregon with her parents for a reunion." So there it was. Confirmation. Anna had lied about Jessica's involvement from the start. I thanked Doug and hung up, my chest tight with anger. The pieces were falling into place, and they painted an ugly picture. Next, I turned to a mutual friend of ours, Rachel. Rachel and Anna had been college roommates, and while they weren't as close as Anna and Jessica, they still kept in touch. I kept the story vague, just enough to spark Rachel's curiosity. "Hey, Rachel. Quick question. Do you know much about Anna's coworker, Sean?" There was a pause, followed by a low whistle. "Sean? Oh yeah. He's the office flirt. Always making the rounds with the women in the department." "Why?" I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just curious." Anna mentioned they've been working on a project together. Rachel laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. "That guy? He's got a reputation, Otis. Let's just say he's not exactly known for keeping things professional. You might want to keep an eye on that." I thanked her and hung up, my pulse pounding in my ears. Sean wasn't just some coworker. He was a predator, and Anna had walked right into his trap. Or maybe she jumped in willingly. The rest of the day was a blur of research and planning. I dug through Anna's social media, looking for any signs of Sean, but she'd been careful. No tags, no check-ins, nothing that would tie them together publicly. But I wasn't relying on social media. I had something better. The receipts, literally. By the time Anna walked through the door on Sunday night, I was sitting in the living room, her credit card statement open on my laptop. She breezed in like nothing had happened, tossing her bag on the floor and giving me a quick kiss on the cheek. "Hey babe, missed you," she said, flashing me that same sweet smile she'd given me before the trip. "Missed you too," I said evenly, keeping my voice calm. She didn't notice the tension in my shoulders, the way my hands clenched into fists when she wasn't looking. Instead, she started talking about her trip in vague, flowery terms, how relaxing it was, how much fun she and Jessica had. Every word out of her mouth was a lie, and I let her say it all. For now. Sunday night stretched on like a bad dream. Anna's fake enthusiasm grated on me as she prattled about the amazing spa she'd visited, how she and Jessica had splurged on facials and pedicures. Her lies were almost insulting in their simplicity. I played along, nodding and smiling in the right places. I asked her what they ate, what shops they visited, if Jessica's kids had been texting her nonstop. Anna answered everything with the ease of someone who had rehearsed her story 100 times. But I wasn't letting her off the hook that easily. So, did Jessica's husband come to pick her up? I asked, keeping my tone casual as I leaned back on the couch. Anna paused for half a second, just long enough for me to notice. No, she said quickly, brushing her hair behind her ear. She, took an Uber home. You know how Doug can be. He hates driving late at night. I smiled tightly. Funny, I talked to Doug on Saturday. He said Jessica was in Oregon all weekend with her parents. Anna froze. Just for a moment, but it was there. The flicker of panic in her eyes before she covered it with a laugh. Oh, right, she said, her voice a little too high. I forgot. She left early Saturday morning. I guess I just, my brain is mush after this weekend. She waved a hand like it was no big deal and turned back to unpacking her bag. That was her move. Pretend the cracks didn't exist and keep barreling forward. But I wasn't letting her distract me this time. Who did you go with, Anna? I asked, my voice sharper now. She stopped what she was doing, her back to me. What do you mean? You know exactly what I mean, I said, standing up and crossing the room to face her. Jessica wasn't with you. So who was? Her eyes darted to the side, her lips pressing into a thin line. Why are you asking me this? Because I know you weren't at some spa weekend, I snapped. I know you were at that hotel 2 hours away. I know you were with someone. So stop lying and tell me the truth. Anna's face shifted, her usual mask of charm slipping. For a moment, she looked cornered, her mind racing for an out. Then she turned to me, her expression hardening. Are you spying on me? She demanded, her voice rising. Checking up on my location, going through my stuff? What the hell, Otis? Her deflection pissed me off more than anything. Don't you dare turn this on me, I said, my voice cold. You lied to me. You lied about where you were, who you were with. And now you're mad because I caught you? She folded her arms, her mouth set in a stubborn line. You're being ridiculous. I needed a break. Okay? A break from this constant scrutiny, this neediness. I didn't think I had to run every detail of my weekend past you. Oh, cut the crap, I shot back. You don't book a boutique hotel and have dinner for two with Jessica while she's in another state. So why don't you just say it? Who's Sean to you, Anna? Your coworker? Your little fling? Her eyes widened, the color draining from her face. Sean, she echoed, her voice faltering. What are you talking about? You think I'm stupid? I snapped. I saw you with him at the hotel, sitting by the pool, laughing, touching. You looked pretty cozy for just coworkers. Anna opened her mouth, then closed it again, like she couldn't decide which lie to go with. Finally, she said, Sean and I are friends. That's all. We were working on a project, and things have been stressful at the office, so we just hung out for a bit. You're blowing this way out of proportion. I laughed bitterly. Friends? Is that why you booked a couple's massage? Why you told me you were with Jessica? Her jaw tightened. Fine. You want the truth? She snapped. Yes, I lied about Jessica. Yes, I went to the hotel with Sean. But it wasn't what you think, Otis. We didn't have sex. We just needed to get away for a bit, okay? To clear our heads. I stared at her, my chest tight with anger. Do you even hear yourself? I said, you expect me to believe you lied about everything just to clear your head with some guy you barely know? Do you think I'm that naive? Anna didn't respond. She just stood there, her arms crossed, her jaw set in defiance. That's when I realized she wasn't going to admit to anything. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She was just angry that I'd caught her. You're unbelievable, I said, my voice low and cold. But you know what? Keep lying. Keep digging your hole. Because I'm done playing along. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her standing there in silence. In that moment, something shifted inside me. The hurt was still there, raw and gnawing at my chest, but it was starting to harden into something else. Resolve. If Anna thought she could manipulate her way out of this, She was about to learn just how wrong she was. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the confrontation. I'd expected Anna to lie and deflect, but because of what came next. After I walked out of the room, she didn't follow me. Not to apologize, not to scream, not even to explain further. Instead, she shut herself in the guest room, slamming the door like a teenager grounded for breaking curfew. It was almost laughable. I stayed in the living room, staring at the empty wine glass she'd left on the table. The lies were piling up faster than I could process, but now, I wasn't letting them overwhelm me. I had her cornered, and she knew it. But I wasn't done. Not even close. The next morning, Anna tried to act like nothing had happened. She walked into the kitchen in her robe, poured herself a coffee, and gave me a half-hearted smile. "Morning," she said, her tone casual. "We should talk about last night." I didn't look up from my phone. "We should," I said flatly. She hesitated, probably thrown off by my cold tone. Then she sighed and set her mug down. "I know you're upset, Otis, and I'm sorry if it seemed like I was keeping things from you. But you have to understand." "No," I interrupted, cutting her off mid-sentence. "You have to understand. I'm not playing this game anymore, Anna. You're lying, and you've been lying for a while. I'm just trying to decide how much more evidence I need before I make my move." Her face went pale. "What are you talking about?" I finally looked up at her, my expression unreadable. "Your credit card, your hotel stay, the couple's massage, the dinners, the boutique spa. I've got it all, Anna. Hell, I even have receipts from last week's late night at work. How was that Trini restaurant with Sean, by the way?" Her mouth opened, then closed, like a fish gasping for air. "That's right," I said, leaning back in my chair. "I've been paying attention. You might want to rethink your strategy." She crossed her arms, her voice defensive. "You're insane. You're digging through my stuff like a paranoid lunatic. Of course, you're going to find things that seem suspicious if you're looking for them." I laughed bitterly, the sound sharp and hollow. "Yeah, because normal people accidentally book hotel stays with coworkers and forget to mention it to their spouses. That's just an honest mistake, right?" Anna's jaw clenched, but she didn't say anything. "Here's the deal," I said, standing up and grabbing my keys. "I'm not going to sit here and argue with you. You want to keep lying? Go ahead. But just know, I've got more than enough to take this wherever it needs to go. Keep digging your grave, Anna." With that, I left the house, slamming the door behind me. I didn't really have a destination in mind. I just drove aimlessly for a while, my thoughts racing. Every time I thought about Anna sitting by that pool with Sean, laughing like she didn't have a care in the world, my chest burned with anger. Eventually, I pulled into a parking lot and called Rachel. "Hey, Otis," she answered. "What's up?" "I need to ask you something," I said, skipping the pleasantries. "You said Sean has a reputation. What exactly do you mean by that?" Rachel hesitated, but then she sighed. "Look, I don't want to get involved, but, yeah, he's hooked up with a couple of women in the office. Everyone knows about it. It's like his thing. Find someone vulnerable, sweep them off their feet, and then move on when it gets messy." My grip tightened on the steering wheel. "Does Anna know this?" Rachel's voice softened. "I don't know. But, Otis, are you sure something's going on between them? I mean, maybe she's just being friendly." "She lied about a weekend trip," I said flatly. "Told me she was with Jessica, but she was at a hotel with him. I saw them. It wasn't friendly." Rachel cursed under her breath. "I'm so sorry, Otis. You don't deserve this." "No," I said, my voice cold, "but I'll make sure they both get what they deserve." That afternoon, I dug deeper. I logged into the phone plan we shared and checked her call and text history. It wasn't hard to spot the pattern. Dozens of calls to and from Sean's number, most of them late at night or during the hours she claimed to be working. Then I remembered something. Her work calendar. Anna wasn't exactly a tech genius, and she often left her Google Calendar open on the shared tablet in the kitchen. I pulled it up, scrolling back through the past few weeks. There it was. Meetings with Sean, marked as private, popping up regularly. I took screenshots of everything. By the time Anna got home from wherever she'd gone to clear her head, I was ready for round two. She walked in, her shoulders tense, and paused when she saw me sitting in the living room with a folder on the coffee table. "What's this?" she asked, her voice wary. I gestured to the folder. "It's your life, Anna. All the lies, the dates, the receipts. Want to explain? Or should I keep collecting more?" Her face hardened, but I saw the flicker of fear in her eyes. "You're being ridiculous," she said, crossing her arms. "I already told you." "You told me bullshit," I snapped, standing up. "Don't bother trying to gaslight me, Anna. I know what's going on. And guess what? So does Sean's wife." Her eyes widened, and for the first time, I saw real panic. "Yeah," I said, my voice low and venomous. "I'm done playing nice. You wanted to play games? Let's see how you like it when the tables are turned." The room was suffocatingly quiet after I dropped that bombshell. Anna just stood there, her face pale, her mouth opening and closing like she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. For once, she was speechless. "Let me guess," I said, my voice cold. "You didn't think I'd find out about Sean's wife, did you?" She finally managed to stammer out, You talked to her?" "Not yet," I said, leaning forward, my elbows resting on my knees. "But it's tempting. What do you think she'd say if I told her what her loving husband's been up to?" "Otis, stop," Anna said, her voice trembling. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "You lied. You cheated. And now you're scrambling because you finally realize I'm not as stupid as you thought." She took a shaky breath, her hands gripping the back of the chair across from me. "It wasn't like that," she said, her voice breaking. "Sean and it wasn't serious. It didn't mean anything." I let out a bitter laugh. "That's supposed to make it better? You sneak off to a hotel, lie about your best friend being with you, and then tell me it didn't mean anything? Jesus, Anna, do you even hear yourself?" She flinched but didn't say anything. "I'm not interested in your excuses," I said, standing up. "I'm interested in the truth. So, tell me, how long has this been going on? And don't even think about lying to me again." She hesitated, her eyes darting away. "A couple of months," she admitted finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "A couple of months," I repeated, my chest tight. "Do you even realize how pathetic that sounds? You've been risking everything. Our marriage, our life together. For months, and it didn't mean anything?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't feel an ounce of sympathy. "Not after everything." "It was a mistake," she said, her voice shaking. "I was confused, Otis. I felt neglected. You've been so busy with work, and I was lonely. Sean was there, and he made me feel wanted." "Don't you dare try to pin this on me," I snapped. "Neglected? Lonely? You could have talked to me. You could have said something. Instead, you decided to crawl into bed with another man." "It wasn't like that," she cried. "We didn't." "Stop," I said, holding up a hand. "Don't insult me by pretending it wasn't physical. I saw the way you looked at him. You don't book a couple's massage to hold hands and talk about work." Anna crumpled into the chair, burying her face in her hands. I let her sit there in silence for a few moments, my anger simmering just below the surface. When I spoke again, my voice was calm but firm. "You want to know the real reason you feel neglected, Anna? Because you've been too busy lying and sneaking around to notice anything else. And now you're going to deal with the consequences." Her head shot up, her tear-streaked face a mask of fear. "What are you going to do?" I met her gaze, my expression hard as steel. "You'll see." The next day, I put my plan into motion. The first step was contacting Sean's wife, Melanie. I'd found her Facebook profile during my late-night digging. A picture-perfect account full of family photos and inspirational quotes about marriage and trust. The irony wasn't lost on me. I debated for hours whether or not to reach out. Part of me felt bad for dragging someone else into this mess, but then I thought about Anna's lies, her excuses, her complete lack of remorse. Melanie deserved to know. I sent her a simple message. "Hi, Melanie. I'm Otis, Anna's husband. I think we need to talk about Sean." It didn't take long for her to respond. "Otis, what's this about?" My heart pounded as I typed out my reply. "I have reason to believe Sean and Anna have been having an affair. I've got receipts, literally." If you want proof, I'm willing to share it. There was a long pause before she wrote back. Call me. When I heard her voice on the other end of the line, it was eerily calm, but I could hear the tension beneath the surface. Okay, she said. Tell me everything. I laid it all out. The hotel, the credit card charges, the texts, the lies Anna had told me. Melanie was quiet as I spoke, her breathing shallow. When I finished, she let out a shaky breath. I knew something was off, she said. Sean's been working late a lot lately, and he's been so secretive with his phone. I should have seen this coming. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. I know this isn't easy to hear. No, she said sharply. Thank you for telling me. I deserve to know the truth. And so do you. We agreed to keep each other updated and ended the call. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had some control over the situation. That night, Anna tried to corner me again. Otis, please, she said, standing in the doorway of the bedroom. Can we just talk? I made a mistake, but I want to fix this. I want to fix us. I didn't even look up from the suitcase I was packing. There is no us, Anna. Not anymore. Her voice broke. You can't just throw away everything we've built. You already did, I said, cutting her off. The second you decided to cheat, you made your choice. Now I'm making mine. Her tears didn't move me. Her pleas didn't soften me. Anna had underestimated me, just like Sean had. But they were about to find out exactly how wrong they were. The next few days were a whirlwind of confrontation, anger, and the unraveling of everything Anna had tried to keep hidden. Once I had contacted Melanie, it didn't take long for her to confirm my suspicions and add fuel to the fire. Sean, it turned out, had a history of cheating. Melanie had caught him once before, years ago, but he'd sworn it was a mistake and begged for another chance. She'd taken him back, wanting to believe he could change. Now, with the evidence I'd provided, there was no doubt he hadn't. I'm done this time, Melanie told me over the phone, her voice hard. Thank you for telling me, Otis. I won't let him keep doing this to me. Her strength surprised me, and in a strange way, it gave me a sense of solidarity. Anna and Sean had thought they could lie and manipulate their way through life, but they hadn't counted on the people they'd hurt banding together. Back at home, Anna's mask of defiance was cracking. She spent her days alternating between angry outbursts and tearful pleas for forgiveness, as if trying to find the right combination to make me relent. One evening, she cornered me in the kitchen, her voice rising in frustration. Are you really going to throw away 8 years of marriage over one mistake? I turned to face her, my jaw tight. You didn't make a mistake, Anna. A mistake is spilling coffee or forgetting a birthday. This was deliberate. You lied, you cheated, and you kept lying even when I gave you a chance to come clean. Her face twisted with anger. And you're perfect, huh? You've never done anything wrong in this marriage? Nothing that deserved this. I shot back, my voice cold. If you were unhappy, you could have talked to me. Instead, you chose to sneak around with Sean, like I wouldn't find out. Her eyes narrowed, and for a moment, I saw something venomous behind them. You've been so wrapped up in your work, Otis. Maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have felt so alone. I laughed bitterly. Ah, there it is. Blame me. Classic move. You know what, Anna? I hope that excuse keeps you warm when you're packing your things. Her jaw dropped. You're kicking me out? You've got 2 days to figure out where you're going, I said, my voice steady. You can go to your parents, crash with Jessica, or shack up with Sean for all I care. But you're not staying here. The next day, I called a divorce lawyer. Helen came highly recommended, a no-nonsense attorney with a reputation for being ruthless when it came to protecting her clients. When I laid out my situation, she didn't mince words. You've got leverage, she said, flipping through the evidence I'd emailed her. The affair, the financial infidelity, this will work in your favor. The fact that you've documented everything is even better. Good, I said. I don't want her walking away with more than she deserves. Helen nodded. We'll make sure of that. I'll draft the papers and have them ready by the end of the week. As I left her office, I felt a strange sense of relief. For the first time since this nightmare began, I had a clear path forward. That night, Anna tried a new tactic. I love you, Otis, she said, her voice trembling as she stood in the doorway of the living room. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. I'll do whatever it takes. Counseling, therapy, whatever you want. Just don't give up on us. I stared at her, my chest tight. Once, those words might have moved me. Once, I might have believed her. But now? You don't get it, do you? I said quietly. This isn't about fixing us. This is about the fact that you broke something that can't be repaired. You made your choice, Anna. Now you have to live with it. Her tears started again, but I didn't stay to watch. The next morning, Melanie and I had another call. She'd confronted Sean the night before, and the fallout was just as explosive as I'd imagined. He denied everything at first, she said, her voice sharp. But when I showed him the proof, he finally admitted it. Said it was just a fling. Like that makes it any better. What are you going to do? I asked. Divorce him, she said without hesitation. I'm done being his doormat. I felt a flicker of admiration for her resolve. Good for you, Melanie. You deserve better. So do you, she replied. Don't let Anna talk you into giving her another chance. People like them don't change. Her words stuck with me as I hung up. By the end of the week, the divorce papers were ready. I came home to find Anna sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the TV. She looked up as I walked in, her eyes red from crying. What now? She asked bitterly. I set the papers down on the coffee table. Sign these. Her face crumpled as she picked up the documents, her hands shaking. You're really doing this? I am, I said firmly. And before you even think about fighting me on this, just remember, I have enough proof to bury you in court. She stared at the papers for a long time, her tears falling silently. For the first time, I felt a pang of something. Maybe regret, maybe pity, but I shoved it down. Anna had made her choices, and now she had to face the consequences. As she picked up the pen, I knew there was no going back. Anna signed the papers that evening. She didn't say much, just sat there with a trembling hand, scribbling her name like it was the weightiest pen stroke of her life. When she finally slid the papers across the table, she looked up at me, her eyes hollow. Are you happy now? She asked, her voice thick with bitterness. I met her gaze, unmoved. I'll be happy when you're out of my life. That was the last real conversation we had. Word about the divorce spread quickly. It's funny how people who haven't reached out in years suddenly want updates when they catch the scent of scandal. Jessica was the first to text me, her message dripping with faux concern. Hey, Otis. Just heard about you and Anna. Is everything okay? It took everything in me not to unload on her. Jessica was Anna's best friend, her confidant, the person who likely knew about the affair all along. Instead, I kept it short. I'm fine. Thanks for asking. A day later, Brent called. Unlike Jessica, he didn't beat around the bush. Dude, I heard about the divorce, he said. Anna cheated, didn't she? I paused for a second, then decided honesty was easier than pretense. Yeah, with a guy from her office. Brent let out a low whistle. That's brutal, man. You need anything? Someone to grab a drink with, or just punch a wall? I chuckled despite myself. A drink sounds good. What I hadn't anticipated was how quickly the affair would become public knowledge. Melanie didn't hold back in her circle of friends, and once she started sharing her side of the story, the details spread like wildfire. By the end of the week, everyone knew. Friends, family, coworkers, it was all out there. Anna's once pristine image took a nosedive. Her friends, the same people who had once flocked to her dinner parties and gushed over her perfect marriage, started pulling away. Even Jessica seemed to distance herself, her social media posts conspicuously free of Anna's name. At work, Sean wasn't faring much better. Melanie had filed for divorce, and while I didn't know the specifics, I heard through the grapevine that their HR department had gotten involved. Apparently, fraternizing with coworkers wasn't looked upon kindly in their company. Good. They deserved it. Anna moved out within a week of signing the papers. She tried to drag her feet, claiming she needed more time to figure things out, but I wasn't having it. I gave you 2 days, I reminded her as she packed the last of her things. Be thankful I didn't toss your stuff on the lawn. She glared at me but didn't argue. By the time she was gone, The house felt lighter, like a storm cloud had finally passed. The silence didn't last long. A few days after Anna left, I started getting texts from mutual friends. Otis, I had no idea. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Can you believe Anna would do something like that? Unreal. If you ever need to talk, I'm here for you. Most of them were well-meaning, but one or two messages rubbed me the wrong way, like they were fishing for gossip instead of offering support. I ignored those. But the strangest message came from Sean himself. It was late one night when my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I opened the text, and my stomach tightened when I read the name at the bottom. Otis, it's Sean. Look, I just want to apologize. I never meant for any of this to happen, and I'm sorry for the pain it's caused you. I stared at the message, my chest tightening with anger. The audacity of this guy, to cheat with my wife and then act like he was some innocent bystander who'd made a mistake. I didn't respond. What could I say that would make a difference? Sean wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was sorry he'd been caught. The real kicker came a few days later, when Jessica finally called. Otis, she started, her tone hesitant. I've been meaning to reach out. Everything's such a mess right now. Yeah, it is, I said curtly. She sighed. I didn't know about Anna and Sean, I swear. If I'd known, I would have told you. I couldn't help but laugh, the sound bitter. You expect me to believe that? You're her best friend, Jessica. If anyone knew, it was you. Look, I get that you're angry, she said quickly, but Anna lied to me too. She told me you guys were just going through a rough patch, that she needed space. I didn't know she was doing this. Whether you knew or not doesn't matter anymore, I said. Anna made her choices, and now she has to live with them. Jessica fell silent, and for a moment, I thought she might hang up. But then she said, I'm sorry, Otis. I really am. If you ever want to talk, I don't, I said bluntly, cutting her off. Take care, Jessica. And with that, I ended the call. By the end of the week, I felt like my life had been turned inside out. Friends were taking sides, whispers followed me everywhere, and the house felt unbearably quiet. But there was one bright spot in all of it, Melanie. We kept in touch, checking in on each other as we navigated the fallout. Her calls were a welcome distraction, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this mess. You doing okay? She asked one night. I'm surviving, I said. You? Same, she said with a dry laugh. But hey, at least we're not the ones who screwed up. Small victories, I said, smiling for the first time in days. Talking to her felt easy, like we were on the same wavelength. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. After Anna moved out, the house was eerily quiet. No sound of her shuffling around in the mornings, no humming to herself while she cooked, no hollow laughter echoing off the walls. At first, the silence was suffocating. I'd never realized how much noise filled our lives until it was gone. But as the days turned into weeks, I found myself appreciating the peace. It wasn't just the absence of her. It was the absence of her lies, the weight of her deceit lifting off my chest little by little. The divorce was moving forward faster than I'd expected, thanks to Helen's ruthlessness and Anna's apparent defeat. She hadn't contested the papers, probably because she knew she didn't have a leg to stand on. The credit card receipts, phone logs, and testimony from Melanie painted a damning picture. Anna didn't even try to fight for the house, which suited me just fine. Work became my refuge. I threw myself into it with a focus I hadn't felt in years. My coworkers, some of whom knew what was going on, kept their distance, offering quiet support without prying. One of them, Marcus, stopped me in the break room one afternoon. Hey man, he said, his tone cautious. I heard about what's been going on. I just wanted to say, that's rough. If you ever need to grab a beer or something, let me know. Thanks, I said, surprised by his sincerity. Also, he added, a small smile tugging at his lips, you look like you're hitting the gym harder than ever. You're gonna come out of this looking like a damn action hero? I chuckled, the first real laugh I'd had in days. The gym did become my sanctuary. Every morning before work, I was there, pushing myself harder than I ever had. It wasn't just about getting in shape. It was about reclaiming control, proving to myself that I wasn't going to let Anna's betrayal define me. After a few weeks, I started noticing the changes. The weight I'd been carrying, both physically and emotionally, was starting to fade. I felt stronger, sharper, more in tune with myself. Melanie and I continued to check in on each other. Our conversations became a routine, something I found myself looking forward to. "How's Sean handling the divorce?" I asked one night. "Like the spineless coward he is," she said with a laugh. "He's trying to act like the victim, but no one's buying it. His parents are furious, his friends are avoiding him, and HR is breathing down his neck at work. Sounds like karma's doing its job," I said, a small smile tugging at my lips. "How about Anna?" she asked. "She's been quiet," I admitted. "No calls, no texts. It's like she's vanished." "Good riddance," Melanie said firmly. "You don't owe her anything, Otis." She made her bed. Her words were a comfort, a reminder that I wasn't the only one dealing with the aftermath. One evening, as I was sorting through old photos to decide what to keep and what to toss, I came across a picture of Anna and me from our honeymoon. We were standing on a beach, her head resting on my shoulder, both of us smiling like the world couldn't touch us. I stared at it for a long time, the memories rushing back in vivid detail. The laughter, the shared dreams, the promises we'd made to each other. But as I looked closer, I realized something. The person in that photo wasn't the Anna I'd come to know. She wasn't the woman who lied to my face, who betrayed my trust without a second thought. I set the photo aside, not in anger, but in acceptance. That chapter of my life was over. A few days later, I ran into Jessica at the grocery store. "Otis," she called out, her voice hesitant but overly bright. I turned to see her standing by the produce section, clutching a basket of apples. She looked awkward, like she wasn't sure whether to approach or run the other way. "Jessica," I said flatly, not bothering to hide my disinterest. She shifted uncomfortably. "I just wanted to say, I'm really sorry about everything. Anna, she made a lot of bad choices, and I hate that you got hurt because of it." I stared at her for a moment, weighing my response. Finally, I said, "You knew, didn't you?" Jessica's face went pale. "Otis, Don't bother," I interrupted. "I don't need your excuses. Just know this, you're as much a part of this as she is. And I don't have time for people who can't be honest." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there in silence. By the time the divorce was finalized, I felt like a different person, stronger, more self-assured, and no longer weighed down by the constant question of whether I could have done something differently. Anna and Sean? They were nothing more than a bad memory, two people who had made their choices and were now living with the fallout. As for me, I was ready to move forward. That evening, Melanie called. "Guess what?" she said, her voice light. "I'm officially divorced as of this morning." "Congratulations," I said, smiling. "How does it feel?" "Like a weight's been lifted," she admitted. "I didn't realize how much space he was taking up in my head until now." "Yeah," I said quietly. "I know the feeling." There was a pause, and then Melanie said, "So, how about we celebrate?" "Drinks my treat." For the first time in months, I felt something close to hope. "I'd like that," I said. The bar Melanie picked was quiet and understated, a far cry from the flashy downtown spots I used to frequent with Anna. The lighting was warm, the crowd mellow, and the music low enough to actually hold a conversation without shouting. When I walked in, Melanie was already there, seated at a small corner table with 2 glasses of wine in front of her. She smiled when she saw me, and for the first time since all of this started, I felt my shoulders relax. "Otis," she said, standing to give me a quick hug. "Glad you could make it." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, sitting across from her. She slid one of the glasses toward me. "Thought you might need this as much as I do." I chuckled, taking a sip. "You're not wrong." We spent the next hour swapping stories, not about the pain or betrayal but about life. Our hobbies, our favorite books, the ridiculous things that had happened at work recently. It was refreshing, like peeling away the layers of bitterness and finding something normal, something human underneath. Melanie laughed easily, her smile lighting up the dim room. She didn't talk much about Sean, and I didn't bring up Anna. For the first time in what felt like forever, The past didn't hang over me like a storm cloud. Can I tell you something? Melanie asked after our second drink. Of course, I said. She hesitated, swirling her wine in its glass. When you first reached out to me about Sean, I was furious. Not at you, at him, obviously. But I also felt embarrassed, like I'd failed somehow. I nodded, understanding all too well. I get that. When I found out about Anna, it felt like I'd been blindsided. Like I'd missed every red flag there was. Exactly, she said, leaning forward. But now? Now I realize it wasn't about us. They're the ones who failed, Otis, not us. Her words hit me harder than I expected. For months, I'd been carrying the weight of Anna's betrayal, questioning everything about myself, what I'd done wrong, what I could have done differently. But Melanie was right. Anna's actions weren't my failure. They were hers. I raised my glass, meeting Melanie's gaze. To surviving, I said. To thriving, she corrected with a grin, clinking her glass against mine. Over the next few weeks, Melanie and I kept in touch. At first, it was casual, a text here, a quick call there, but it didn't take long for our conversations to deepen. She was easy to talk to, sharp and funny in a way that caught me off guard. One Saturday, she invited me to a hiking trail just outside the city. I need fresh air, she said, and I figure you could use a break from the gym routine. I laughed. Fair enough. What time? We met early that morning, the sun just starting to rise over the horizon. Melanie showed up in hiking boots and a baseball cap, her hair pulled into a loose ponytail. You ready for this? She teased, shouldering her backpack. Born ready, I said, grinning. The trail was steep, winding through dense forest and offering breathtaking views of the valley below. We talked as we walked, our conversation flowing easily from one topic to the next. At one point, Melanie stopped and turned to me, her expression serious. You know, I never thought I'd get here, she said, gesturing to the view. Not just the hike this. Feeling okay again. Me neither, I admitted. But it's nice, isn't it? Not feeling stuck anymore. She nodded, her smile soft. It really is. That day marked a turning point. It wasn't just about moving forward. It was about realizing there was still joy to be found, still something worth building after everything had fallen apart. Anna, meanwhile, was fading into the background of my life. She still sent the occasional text, brief, apologetic messages about picking up the last of her things or asking about the paperwork, but I kept my replies curt. One day, she called. Otis, she said, her voice tentative. I just wanted to check in, see how you're doing. I'm fine, I said flatly. She hesitated. I miss you. I think about you all the time. I know I screwed up, but what, Anna? I interrupted. You want me to forgive you? Pretend none of it happened? You made your choice and I've made mine. Move on. Her silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Finally, she whispered, I'm sorry, and hung up. By the time I saw Melanie again, I felt lighter. We met for dinner at a small Italian place, the kind of spot where the owner greets you at the door and the wine flows freely. She looked at me over her glass of wine, her eyes warm. You seem different, she said. Different how? I asked. Lighter. Happier. I thought about it for a moment, then nodded. I think I am. She smiled, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like the future wasn't something to fear. The final chapter of this messy, painful saga unfolded quietly. There was no grand confrontation, no dramatic declarations. Just paperwork, small steps, and the steady unraveling of what was once a life shared with Anna. Her calls stopped altogether a few weeks after that last conversation. She must have finally understood that there was nothing left to say. Every now and then, I catch a glimpse of her on social media, her posts increasingly curated to show a life that screamed, I'm fine. I didn't care to dig deeper. Sean, I heard through Melanie, had been forced out of his job. HR had uncovered enough about his relationships in the office to send him packing. Rumor had it he'd moved out of town, but wherever he was, I hoped he was as miserable as he deserved to be. Meanwhile, my life had begun to feel like my own again. The house no longer felt haunted by Anna's presence. I replaced the furniture we'd picked out together, painted over the walls she'd insisted on decorating, and finally tackled the backyard project I'd been putting off for years. Each change felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Melanie and I grew closer, though neither of us rushed to define what we were. There was no pressure, no need for labels. We were two people who understood each other's pain, who shared a determination to move forward without letting the past hold us back. One afternoon, Melanie called with news. "Guess what?" she said, her voice bright. "What's up?" I asked, smiling at her enthusiasm. "I got a new job," she said. "Out of town. It's a fresh start, better pay, better environment, and zero Sean." "That's amazing," I said, genuinely happy for her. "When do you start?" "Next month," she said. There was a pause before she added, "I wanted to tell you first." Her words hung in the air, bittersweet. I was proud of her for taking this step, but I couldn't ignore the pang of sadness at the thought of her leaving. "That's great, Melanie," I said. "You deserve this." We celebrated her new job the night before she left, sharing drinks and laughter at the same quiet bar where we'd first reconnected. When it came time to say goodbye, there were no tears, just a lingering hug and the promise to stay in touch. "You'll be okay, Otis," she said, her voice soft. "You're stronger than you think." "So are you," I said, smiling. In the weeks that followed, I settled into a new rhythm. Work, the gym, weekends spent exploring places I'd never bothered to visit before. For the first time in years, I felt truly free, free to make my own choices, to chase my own happiness without compromise. One evening, as I sat on the back porch watching the sunset, I thought about everything that had led me to this point. The betrayal, the anger, the heartbreak. It had all been devastating, but it had also been a wake-up call. I'd learned that trust is fragile, that not everyone who claims to love you has your best interests at heart. But I'd also learned that I was stronger than I'd ever given myself credit for. Anna had tried to break me, whether she realized it or not. But in the end, she'd only made me stronger. Months passed, and life continued to move forward. Melanie and I kept in touch, our conversations warm and familiar. She seemed to be thriving in her new city, her texts filled with stories of her adventures and successes. As for me, I didn't rush into anything new. I focused on myself, on building a life that felt solid and fulfilling. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. One evening, as I scrolled through my phone, a text from Melanie popped up. "Guess what? I'm visiting next month. Drinks on me?" I smiled, feeling that familiar warmth in my chest. "You know it," I replied. The road ahead wasn't entirely clear, but for the first time, that didn't scare me. The past was behind me, and the future was wide open. And this time, I was ready for it. Subscribe so you don't miss new stories on the channel.